All right, it looks like we are live. I'm so happy to have with me today Jen Smith and Stephanie Becker with Better Together. This is like part of a series. This property guy to Virginia, and I'm in real estate, but a lot of big decisions that people make always happen within the home. And the last live stream we had was speaking with Jen Dowda with Senior Consulting about dementia support, and we're
Yeah.
continuing this conversation with Stephanie and Jen here from Better Together to talk about family navigation, specifically families that are caring for children with rare diseases and chronic illnesses. And I just think that's an important conversation because there's a lot of complexity and challenges that families have to face, and it all affects the home. So I just want to share my appreciation to Stephanie and Jen for showing up today to share how they can support families and learn all about Better Together and how families can get that support. So to kick things off, I love, and I'm going to pass this one on to you, Stephanie, to just
Sure.
give us an introduction of Better Together, the story behind the organization, and how it all got started.
Sure. Well, Jake, thank you for having us on. We're super excited to be here um, and love the opportunity to kind of share a little bit about what seems like a niche in our community, but actually is a lot more prevalent than people might be aware of. But Better Together started by accident. I always say it was not a plan to start this nonprofit, but it actually started 10 years ago in 2016. My son was diagnosed with cancer, and um, our life turned upside down, as you can imagine, with a diagnosis as serious as cancer can be and was for us. What we found is having a child with cancer afforded us to access to a lot of resources in the community that were available through nonprofits and local chapters of national organizations that existed because people know pediatric cancer and it's something that's heard of and supported. So we were lucky that Jack had cancer and began a 3.5 year protocol supporting him with a village behind us, connecting us to information and opportunities to engage with one another and some really cool stuff. We actually got to do some cool stuff. So it was neat to be a part of that community if you had to join that club. About the same time, a friend of mine's son started to get sick, and they received the news that their son had a diagnosis of a rare disease, less than 40 documented cases in the country. And so what that meant for them was their path looked very different. There was no local organization that supported that particular disease. They didn't have a village that said, hey, we get, what you guys are going through. And here are other families with interstitial lung disease and some things like that. And so as we began treatment for our kids, it was this parallel journey where we really got to see there was such a highlighted gap in support between families that have a well-known or a child has a well-known disease or condition versus a rare or chronic condition. And it was shocking as we traveled that journey with Jack. We called it a family diagnosis. So it was we were all involved because so much of the focus is on that diagnosed child. How our life would look so different without support. And I always said, I can't imagine what families go through without information and support and guidance on all the things that come up while you're at home, outside of the doctor's office, the things that you need answers to, the connections that you don't know how to make on your own. And I think about what does that look like for so many families that didn't have access. And so Better Together was started really to fill that gap in support that was not available at the time. And currently we work with families that have what's called medically complex kids. So these are kids that are diagnosed often with multiple diagnoses, but the key is they have 5 or more specialists, which makes their life really challenging and a lot going on. And what I didn't realize at the time, I say it's a niche what we do, but there's over 7,000 rare diseases that have been identified and more continue to be with research named. But in Richmond, there's over 3,000 kids with a rare or chronic illness. So this is not that rare. It's just that the individual diseases are less well known.
Got it. I just want to call out real quickly for people who are watching live that if you do have any questions during this interview, feel free to drop them in the comments and we can pull them up on the screen. This is an engaging conversation. Would love to hear anybody's feedback as we continue onward. Stephanie, thank you for that overview of Better Together and the story that behind it and how you got everything started. I do find it really interesting how it's how personal stories really drive missions forward, and especially understanding, the gap with having these rare illnesses and how there was a lack of support there that you're filling with your organization. As we know, the topic for today is about family navigation. Yep. and how that all kind of plays into what you offer. And maybe this is a question that we can send to you, Jen, since you are the family navigator for Better Together. It's just to give, maybe start off with just an overview of your role at Better Together, and then talk a little bit about family navigation.
Sure. So obviously my role is family navigator, and I help support all of the children and families that have rare and chronic health needs. And so I think a lot of families are just super overwhelmed when they're trying to, navigate these new diagnoses, figuring out resources and services that they qualify for, navigating all of the appointments, school supports, Medicaid, a lot of things that we, as typically developing individuals, don't necessarily think about. And sometimes they just don't even know where to start. And that's kind of where I come in. So I help connect them to community resources, programs. I provide a lot of emotional support, hopefully to help make their lives just a little bit easier. I want to make sure that families feel heard and understood. And sometimes they just need someone to guide them through all these difficult systems and advocate for themselves or for their child, and really remind them that they're not alone in this journey. And at the end of the day, my goal is to empower families, provide that support, and help them access the services and opportunities that their loved one needs to thrive in their environment at home and in the community.
Let's go to like step one, or that first step that people take when they start working with you in family navigation. And I'm sure that there's a lot of emotion, probably a lot of stress going on. What are some of the things that you see with the families in terms of the emotional side, some of the challenges that they're facing early on, and what kind of support do you provide at that first stage?
Yeah, so I think it's unique to every single family. Every single family has strengths and weaknesses, and they're also in different stages of their journeys as well. So it really just depends on the family. A lot of families don't even know what they need. They're like, I don't know what to ask you for. And we have on our website, we have a resource page that lists, some quick resources for families. But I also house a database of almost 500 different resources, and those range from Medicaid waiver information to IEP and school support systems, financial resources, hospital and lodging when, they have an extended stay there, durable medical equipment, things like that that they now have to navigate that they're not used to having to navigate before.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to point out on the website, one of the things that I really appreciated was how you have like links to specific resources. So it's saying, I can tell that there's like a bigger network at play here. You have Better Together, but then you have the network of companies and organizations that supports the mission that you're pursuing here. Can you speak a little bit to that network and like what you're looking for in terms of organizations that could step up to help support the families that you're helping through with family navigation, and how they can be of support for you?
Stephanie, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So one of the things I think that you'll see on our website, it's sort of a very top level view of the typical things that families often need connections to. And those links are to vetted resources. things that we didn't just pull off the internet. We've either worked with them directly or we have a relationship with them. But one of the things that's really important to Better Together in serving families is when we make a recommendation to a support service or an entity that could be helpful to our families, is really to have a community partnership set up where either we're making a warm introduction to a person that's at that company, or we know and have used them and say, you can ask for so-and-so, or this is how you navigate, you have to call and leave a message, or we know who we're referring to. And that's really built upon relationships with these entities in our community. So recently I was talking to people who were like, what are you looking for? And I said, we want to build community partners. We want to be able to trust that when we send a family to XYZ, we know who we're sending them to. We can depend on it, on that company or that business or service to deliver what they say they're going to do. And that's part of building that trust in the community, but also enabling families to trust us, and that the information that we're giving them is not going to lead them down, a dark hole that ends with frustration and then they're back at square one.
Gotcha. I want to touch on a little bit of the process with family navigation and I guess the experience in terms of like, how often are you meeting with the families? Are you coming to their homes? Give me a little bit of insight behind the scenes as far as how that looks.
Yeah. So again, it's what I do is I provide personalized support and guidance based on the family and individual needs. So sometimes that looks like helping a parent figure out what services they need. Sometimes it's advocating, like I said before. Sometimes it's just simply being someone who understands what they're going through. I do hospital visits frequently when they're hospitalized and deliver a care bag full of items that they might need and help keeps the kiddos occupied and the parents occupied, because sometimes they're in there for a long time. But I think the key here is that we provide so much more than just information. We really help create a community for these families that are caring for these children with rare and chronic diseases. And it's so lonely and so isolating when they're navigating the diagnoses and the hospital visits and the equipment needs and all of the things. That the family navigation program with Better Together really helps bridge all of these gaps in connecting families to the resources and to each other. We focus a lot on mental health support. For example, our Moments caregiver support group, in conjunction with the Children's Hospital of Richmond, we provide a safe place where parents can come in that have children with medical complexities, and it's a safe environment. They know there that everyone else knows exactly what they're going through. They don't have to explain anything. They don't have to explain why they were late. And it's really community building events. And I think that's one of the most special parts of Better Together is the community. Families are able to meet other families who get it, and they've created these bonds and these friendships, and they can go to each other for support. And again, like I said, they don't have to, explain their medical journey because everybody gets it. And at the end of the day, Better Together is making sure that families know that they are not alone in this process.
I love the community aspect to this because it's often, anytime you're going through some kind of a challenge, it's easy to kind of withdraw because you feel like you're on an island by yourself and nobody else understands what I'm going through.
Yes.
And as part of what you offer, you're saying, hey, you're not alone. We have other people who are experiencing the same challenges, and we're here to pull those people together and grow better together, right? And that's
exactly.
That kind of brings it full circle to the name. Maybe if you can expand a little bit more on like the groups, like is there any kind of how should I say it? Like, I know sometimes like kind of like grouping people based on is it like certain situations you're going through? Is it like there's a dad's group or there's a group for, like, tell me a little bit more about how you,
so we have groups for everybody. So we just launched our Dads Together program. We actually have our launch event next Monday. So we're super thrilled and excited about that. We are taking the dads to play little golf, and providing them with some camaraderie and food and, just a chance for them to be together and with other dads that get it, because men and women are so different. We also support our siblings, so we launched our sibling program this year, and we have
Mm.
3 components to that. We have a recreational part where we take like field trips, basically is what I equate it to. We also have something called sib shops, which is a research based program, so we really help children navigate those feelings that they're having with being a sibling of a child with medical complexities, and how they might be feeling about that. And then, of course, for our moms, we provide, we do annual retreats. We just finished our retreat in April, which was a huge success and really focused on mental health and filling their cup up and making sure that they can go home and they're able to care for themselves, but their family, because you can't pour from that empty cup.
I think
Absolutely.
I'll add to that. I think what's interesting that makes us a little bit different is because we don't identify with one or two or five different diagnoses. These kids and families are a melting pot. They're the zebras, right? There are no two kids with the exact same diagnoses that are a part of Better Together or probably have rare conditions in general. The common thread is the journey. They often experience the same levels of isolation and fear and anxiety. And where we come in and support is walking alongside these families and the journey in caring for a child. Many of them don't have the benefit of a remission date, for example, like we did, where you get to end treatment. Most of these kids have lifelong conditions. And so I think what makes us a little bit different is we don't focus on what disease the child has. It's more of what is the family's experience and what does their life look like, and how do we create a community of like families. All of these families have these journeys that are so similar. How do we bring these families together in a community where they can share the good, the bad, the ups, the downs, and really this is their village for support and connection, both as far as our family navigation program, but just part of their life and building a life with other families that look like theirs and talk like theirs and behave like theirs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's such an important aspect too. I mean, all things aside, I think that's just good for humanity, to come together in ways that we can all grow and be part of the journey. Especially when you're going through something that's complex like that. And even more so, I know we all, having kids, it's very difficult to navigate those challenges. So having that support system and community certainly helps you move forward. Is there anything, I can imagine the financial stress can be probably very taxing for families that are going through this. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit. Is there anything that you can offer, or there are resources, or if somebody's coming to the table and say, I'm going through this situation and the medical bills are stacking up and there's so much that we're trying to deal with. How do you help people or support people through those challenges?
Yeah, so I think, the first thing, and a lot of people don't know about this, but getting on a Medicaid waiver, it's called long-term care. And that is not based on the parent's income, it's based on the child's income. And that getting that Medicaid is huge for families because it covers those office visits, it covers the therapies, it covers the specialist appointments, covers the equipment. And so I think that helps a lot. So I make sure that that's the very first thing. Do you have a waiver? Okay, let's navigate that world and let's get you on that. And that kind of sets them up for success. But in terms of, even if you have Medicaid, it's still a financial strain. Not everything is covered. And so, people come to me constantly and they're like, I need help paying for this or paying for that. And that's when I go into my little database and I pull from my resources, depending on what it is that they need. And we kind of go from there. And Again, like Stephanie said, we have these trusted resources that we have vetted. So we know that when we're referring out that these are good resources and that they're helpful to individuals.
And
I think
resources.
I was just going to add real quick. I think the neat part about that is it's kind of two-tiered, and it goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier. Jen has a plethora, a database of entities that you can apply for financial aid for different types of things, and you can apply for help with this and that. But sometimes it's these community partnerships where we've developed a relationship with someone that is willing to come out and service an HVAC at a reduced rate, or maybe they, due to our relationship, they're going to take care of that cost for that family that month. Or, we can call other trade providers that we have relationships with. And we've heard countless stories, Jen, where through these community partnerships, they've been able to come in and fix or install or repair, whatever it is at the family's house. The wiring story is one of my favorites. I think the family that their child came home on 8 machines.
Nine different machines, and every time she plugged all 9 machines in, her electrical would fail. And so we were able to reach out to one of our community partners, and that partner came in and took care of rewiring her entire house for her, because what she ended up having to do was readmitting her child into the hospital, and he could not come home until that was fixed. And they went out there very quickly and donated everything, and she was able to bring her son home. And that story is just goosebumps.
I know. It did it to me again. Yeah. And so those are the types of relationships that we're talking about that are so impactful to families. And it might just be the one thing that company did. They offered that one pro bono service that month or whatever, but it meant bringing a child home, not living in the hospital. And that's the impact that our community has on these families.
That's amazing.
And it can be, that's huge. It's a huge thing. We love talking about it because it just gives you those goosebumps, right? But something as small as a church partnering with one of our families to provide them with meals when they have clinic days, two times a month. And that mom gets home and she's like, I'm just done. I can't even think about what to put on the table. We have a community partner that picked that up and delivers those meals to that family twice a month. So they don't have to worry about it. They know when they leave in the morning, they're going to come home and there's something there for them. And that may seem small, but in our families' lives, it's huge.
That's amazing. I love hearing stories like that. And being that this is like in the real estate space, I want to give a shout out to any of the home service providers and folks that are following along to definitely, consider reaching out to you about being a community partner and supporting in that way. You hear the stories about the rewiring and look at the impact that made on a family is massive. For people that do want to get involved, like what's the best, like just reach out to you through email, or what's the best way for them to get
just email me. It's my first name at Stephanie at Better2gether, or you can go to our website and hit contact us. That comes to me too. And just ask to learn more about being a community partner. We'd love to talk about what works for them. And as unique as family navigation is to each family, so are our community partnerships. Mm-hmm. It's really a mutually beneficial relationship. So we'd love to see what works for both parties.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, I dropped a little banner at the bottom with your website.
Yeah,
so.
I see that. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. The technology is working.
I know. That's great.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything you feel like that should have been covered on family navigation that we didn't cover that you would like to speak to before we wrap up here?
Not so much that, but I want to speak to the families, that are walking this journey. We may or may not service you, but if we do, this is for you. And if we don't service you, this is for you too. You have this entire community behind you that wants to support you, that wants to be involved. So I'm not just talking about the small Better Together unit as our families, but outwardly, our board members, our community partners, our volunteers, our interns, they all want you to know that they are there for you and that they want to be there for you. And I know that sometimes asking for help is really hard for people. And I'm one of those people, so I totally get it, but it is not, it doesn't make you weak. You don't have to be alone. Support is essential. And honestly, these families are the most compassionate and most resilient, strongest families I have ever met in my life. And you're stronger than you think, even on your hardest day.
Great point, Jen.
That's amazing. Love that. Stephanie, any final words?
I was actually gonna say something very similar. I think sometimes the hardest thing is to ask for help, and people view that as a weakness. I mean, Jen said it beautifully. I can't say it any better. I think it's I think what people need to recognize is that they're not meant to navigate this alone. This is meant to be something that's shared, and our community wants to help, and Better Together certainly wants to help. And sometimes getting that through to folks and saying it's okay to ask for help, and it's really not. This journey is not ever really intended to for one parent or two parents to figure it out on their own with everything else. And that's why we're here, is to help lighten the load, ease the burden, and to create a little joy in their life, because we've helped smooth that road for them.
Very good. Love it. Love it. This is such a good conversation. I appreciate all the work you're doing in the community and how you're supporting these families. Anybody who's watching, please consider reaching out to Better2gether, reach out to Stephanie, speak with Jen. They are there to support you. This is just an amazing organization. And Stephanie and I, gosh, we've known each other for a few years now. So yeah. I'm so glad we stay connected. So after this, we're going to wrap up now. I'm just letting everybody know that we will be publishing the video as well as kind of a breakdown article to the Property Guide of Virginia website under our article section. So if you ever want to go back and revisit, we'll have the notes there, the contact information, as well as the recording from this live stream. So with that said, we will be wrapping up. Jen, Stephanie, thank you again. It was a pleasure talking with you and learning more about all the impact that you're making in the community.
Thanks, Jake. It's great to be here. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.